What about the countdown thing that we used to do?
That's what I'm saying. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, I like that.
We're live.
We sure are. Back at it again.
Back at it again with the white bands.
Okay.
I wonder what that kid's doing now. Hey, everybody. Add us, comment. Let us know where you're tuned in from. We'd love to hear from you. We are live today. Unicorn Fighters coming at you. Very, very excited to be with you all this morning. Dan has a tan. I have a tan. Because I was in Florida. Dan is in Florida. Jake does not have a tan because he is in Raleigh.
Right. I was out there cheering on Vaco-sponsored Dawson Armstrong at the Lecom Classic as part of the Corn Ferry Tour. Not a big deal. Came in second. Ends up in a playoff hole. I need to tell you, as people are trickling in, he was 2 strokes back. He bogeyed on 18, so that would have put him. He would have won, but he was 2 strokes back when he was done. The guy in first place double bogeyed and then bogeyed his last 2 holes. So it was a 3-person playoff. Bro, it was wild. There's only like 1,000 people there. We were getting that place amped up though. Big Dawson Armstrong guy.
It felt like 6,000.
Dawson, if you were on LinkedIn this morning, hello.
Just driving his engagement.
Again, add us, comment us, let us know where you're tuning in from. We're going to get rolling here soon. Talk about the power of ask. We're all going to kind of talk about how it's helped us in our careers and why you should be better at asking for things. And like I said in my title, not just asking for extra ketchup at the restaurant, but also asking for things in your career. Julio, what's going on, buddy? It's good to see you, man. Good to see you. Also, just a few housekeeping things. So again, we are now more on a regular schedule. We again go live 9:30s on Wednesday every week, just hanging out, us dudes, and then we are starting to pile on guests for our show tomorrow, 9 a.m. Central. We have a engineering major at Netflix, Ryan Burgess. He's going to be joining us. Very excited about that. Again, that is no, Jake. That is actually 9 a.m. Central. It's on the calendar invite for tomorrow.
Wednesday's one.
Yeah, the Wednesday's 9:30, and then the following week we're having Kelly Vaughn. Kelly's out of Atlanta. She is got in on Shopify early, and she runs her own Shopify consulting company. So she's going to be on with us next Thursday. Very excited about that. Brian, good morning. What's going on, buddy? It's good to see you. Let's go ahead and get started. Enough with the beach music and us chatting about golf and tans. Again, thank you for tuning into Unicorn Finders. Our goal for this podcast is to find the unicorns in tech. No matter what they do, we want to find cool people doing cool things. Today's session, the Wednesday live session, is actually, we started this podcast a year ago this month because we were all lonely sitting at home and we were all really good friends. And we said, why don't we create a podcast as an excuse to hang out with each other? And so that is what our Wednesdays are. Wednesday mornings are live where me, Jake, and Dan can get together, talk about random things, and hang out with you all. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Real quick intros before we get started. Jake, give an intro about yourself for the people who do not know who Jake Sheppard is.
What is up? Yeah, we need to. It's resetting, right? I'm still counting this as New Year, right? We're still month 2, but just now waking up, really, right? So yeah, Jake Sheppard. I am from Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm saying from now. Been here 11 years, and I lead an engineering division for our company here, Vaco, called Vaco Built. We build lots of cool stuff. Got some incredible engineers, way smarter than I am, thank God. That make the computers go beep, boop, boop. And I'm also on the board for a couple nonprofits here, tech-driven, especially around bringing, big passion for me is to bring education into underserved communities as it pertains to STEM education and more specifically software engineering. And so sit on the board and sponsor some of those. Here, shout out to Hackathon Junior and my sweet friend Rose Lorenzo, which I owe you a call back, by the way. You are listening right now. And yeah, that's it. Other than that, chasing 3 kids around.
I love it. Dan.
I love it. Yeah, I'm Dan. I help lead our technology practice down here in Tampa, Florida, over at Vaco. Similar to what Jake does, we do some consulting projects. We focus a bit on app dev, business intelligence, cloud-based stuff. We also do some executive searches. That's where kind of my bread and butter is, in that director, VP, CIO, CTO search level. But outside of that, big wine guy, big bourbon guy. I try to play golf every once in a while. I'm involved in a bunch of different stuff here in the community. I really try to be involved. Similar with Jake in STEM education, I sit on the board. I actually chair the board for Hillsborough County Public Schools, which is the county Tampa's in, dealing with all of their IT education. So super excited about that. I sit on a couple other boards that focus on economic development and trying to bring business and companies to underserved and underutilized areas, doing a bunch of great stuff up by the USF area. And an announcement in a couple of weeks, I'll let you guys know. But I too may be going back to school here in the not too distant future. So exciting stuff going on my end. So
nice.
Taylor.
Dan can be more obnoxious about Florida Gators than he already is.
I do that too.
Yeah, my name is Taylor Desson. For those of you who do not know me, I kind of do all things recruiter stuff here in Nashville, lead a team of 9, try to make sure we don't suck at our jobs, and then also do the podcast. I have obviously my guidance counselor 2.0 live show that I do every morning as well. So again, very excited to be here with you boys. A few more drop-ins. Bettina, it's good to see you. Clay, great to see you, man. And then as always, John, good to see you. Thank you again for tuning in, y'all. We appreciate it. Again, our whole job, I talk about this on my guidance counselor show, but this as well, this even more so, that we want this to be a community for others, right? So if people comment into DMs, comment in the chat, connect with them. Connect with them on LinkedIn. Use our show as a platform to leverage a connection. So again, thank you all for tuning in. So let's get into the show about asking and why you should ask and what are some, like, how that has propelled you in your career. And so the first thing that I want to go ahead and kick this off with me is that asking has radically transformed my ability to meet people, especially with this podcast. Right. I did not know who Ryan Burgess is, who we're getting tomorrow, until I just slid into his DMs and asked. Kelly Vaughn, I've admired her from afar on Twitter. No idea who she is. She doesn't know me from Adam. I DM'd her and we're having her on. So I will tell you this, people are incredibly kind. I put out this content a lot. The one thing with the pandemic, and boys, I'm going to be interested to hear your thoughts on this. The one thing with the pandemic that I have seen is people are actually kinder. People, I think, realize that we're all in this together. We're all at home. And so people are willing to say yes more. And so asking for me on my level has actually propelled this podcast and allowed us to get some pretty cool guests. So I'm interested to hear y'all's thoughts. Dan, you kick it off. You're kind of gridding.
Yeah, no. So I, outside of Unicorn Finders, I have a Florida Gators podcast. And so I'm going to parlay this into both of those. And then I want to kind of move on from there is, like you said, Taylor, people are a lot nicer than you think. People are a lot more helpful than you think. And people are willing to share their story. They like to, there's a phrase that I use a lot, getting their tires pumped, right? Like people like to be told, hey, like I want to hear from you because you're a thought leader, right? And being a thought leader doesn't necessarily mean that you have, a bazillion followers on LinkedIn or Twitter. It could mean, hey, you've done some really great things for the community and we want to share those, or your thoughts have, you have an interesting thought, an interesting way to think about things. And so, I think that what we found, on this podcast and on my other podcast is that a lot of people, like you said, Taylor, are just willing to help if you let them know, hey, I think that you do something great, or hey, I really want to hear your story. And I think to me, people love talking about themselves, not in like a malicious way or like an egotistical way. I think people have really interesting thoughts, and platforms like this allow for open dialogue and open discussion, which I think the pandemic has absolutely amplified, our ability to have better discussions. Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah. Well, there's really two streams of power from asking. One is from this question behind the question aspect of just getting to know individuals just better, right? So there's so many opportunities to ask something other than, hey, how's your week going? That's a good lead. It's, asking that other question. You only need 4 or 5 more levels of questioning to really know an individual more than most people probably know that person. And it's also just the right thing to do. But the other is just you don't have it because you don't ask for it. How would someone know that you need something if you're not asking for it? Or know that you're interested in that promotion, or know that you're interested in, it sounds dumb, but know that you're interested in a raise or need a raise or we're thinking about it, right? There's so many opportunities for advancing from a company perspective, from a career, and from a relationship perspective, just simply by being bold enough to put yourself out there to have rejection if they say no. I mean, that don't ask because they're afraid of being rejected. Like just right? And you have to be, don't be a jerk about it and ask for everything. Hey, can I have your shoes? Something stupid like, but you never know. I asked Taylor for his Yeezys and he said no, and I was like, well, we're not friends anymore. We're going to podcast together, but it's still worth asking, right? But yeah, I mean, I think that from that parlay to fear of rejection, how do you guys deal with overcoming, if you did deal with it at any point, but overcoming that fear of rejection? I feel a lot of people have that, and that stops them from really asking for that next level.
Yeah.
A lot of people deal with that.
Yeah, real quick, Clay goes, I'm a sales recruiter and very junior. I think the largest impact for me is really speaking like a normal person. I think that's incredibly underrated. Relating with candidates, people just want to talk with genuine people. Love learning. Thank you for the show. And he said, no one's going to give you more if you're comfortable not asking for more. I mean, Clay just bringing the straight heat this morning.
Taylor, you mind if I hit on that real quick?
Go ahead, please.
Because I think he makes a good point in two different ways, and then kind of a tangential point here is I think that a lot of people are really, 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 really open to sharing their knowledge and sharing what they know, right? Like it's no secret that the three of us work in tech, and it's also no secret that none of us have ever really put together a line of code in our life, right? So where we've all been successful, I think, is being open to asking people what we don't know and not being afraid to know what their question is, right? So I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that if you come from a spot of ignorance has such a bad connotation to it, but if you come from hey, I don't know what I don't know, could you explain this to me a little bit more? Could you share that in a different way with me, is an incredibly intuitive way for you to engage in conversation, because you're admitting that you're coming from a place of vulnerability, which is what asking is. I'm putting myself out there. So when Taylor asks somebody to come on the podcast, or we ask somebody, or if you're asking for a raise, or if you're asking for, that last slice of pizza, right? Jake, you brought up that example in our chat before, was you're putting yourself in a vulnerable position. And people, for the most part, if you come from a vulnerable position, not of weakness, but of strength, of vulnerability, that people are so much more likely to be open to engage in dialogue.
I love that. I love what you just said. Not a weakness of vulnerability, but a strength of vulnerability. And I think that's huge. I was talking to somebody the other day on the phone, and they're like, "Man, what do I ask this person? I don't know how to approach this person." And I go, "Hey, why don't you just say you have no idea what you're doing, and just tell them that? Literally, you don't have to act like you know what you're doing. Just say, hey, listen, so and so, I don't know what I'm doing. How would you do this?" And I think, coming from a sales background, we have, Clay posted, just coming from yourself, coming from a place of vulnerability, in a sense of I just don't know.
Yeah.
But I want to learn, I think goes a very long way, because I think people have problems with asking. Right.
Well, it comes into that humility just in general, right? I mean, you have to humble yourself to be able to be vulnerable, or admit what you don't know, or ask for help, or ask for that, you have that combination of vulnerability and rejection and overcoming rejection, right? Because you have to be, again, to overcome that fear of rejection, be able to ask and to be vulnerable and to be humble.
Yeah.
Right. Once you're breaking free of having to be dependent on what other people think about you, you learn so much more, you grow so much more, you sell so much more, because you end up having real conversations.
So,
TD, you were gonna talk about fear of rejection, I think, a little bit before I interrupt. So my apologies.
Yeah, so I want to go ahead and close on this, because we're already at 15 minutes, right? I want to keep this keep it quick, give the people what they want. So let's end on this: the fear of rejection.
Yep.
Right. Here's how I deal with fear of rejection. One, I'm in counseling for it. If we want to get like really vulnerable here, I'm in counseling for fear of rejection because I have a fear of it. I think I come at it because I get so insecure, and I feel like if I'm rejected, that I'm not enough, or that I don't know enough. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, and people aren't willing to admit that. And so how I have worked on it personally, if you don't want to spend money going to counseling, for me, I think it's continuing to ask, continuing to continue to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. I think that's the biggest thing. I think if you have problems, like if you're in sales and you're watching this, like Clay, if you're still watching this and you're struggling to call into clients and ask for things, or you're on the job search and you feel weird sliding to people's DMs, like keep doing it, keep being vulnerable, and you're finally going to get comfortable. So that's how I deal with the fear of rejection. Dan?
Well, I don't know if I've ever gotten over the fear of rejection, and I deal with it every day, right? There's always going to be a fear because we're inherently people that when we want things, we take them, right? Like that's what cavemen did. And that's how we've grown, right? Like we kind of want our way, and there is always a fear of rejection, for me. And that's not something that I'll ever get over. But I think the most important thing is two things. Is one, to know that being rejected isn't the end of anything, right? It could be the end of a relationship. It could be the end of a job. It could be the end of, somebody saying, no, I want that last slice of pizza, right? But to know that rejection is a part of life, and it's an okay part of life, that helps me cope a little bit better with the idea, right? Yeah. But I think for me, if you come, like I said, with that strength of vulnerability of saying, hey, I don't know what I don't know, could you help me? Or, hey, I have this podcast that has less listeners cumulatively than you average in one show, but I think that you have an unbelievable amount of knowledge and information, and I just want to open that up to somebody else that may not know who you are. But it's coming from the idea that I value you, and I'm now asking something from you, and this is the value that you're going to then get out of it, right?
I love that. Jake, bring it home, man, and we'll close it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think depends on where you get your worth from, right? If you're viewing your worth in the individual that's right in front of you, you can only give people as much control. People only have as much control over you as you give them, right? So if, like for my wife, my wife, rejection from my wife is totally different than rejection from my friend, from a boss, from a stranger on the street, because I value her opinion more than anyone else's, right? And she knows that, and I trust that, and I want to hand that to her, right? But I'm not going to give that same level of access to my emotions or my mind or my worth to just anybody, right?
I love that.
That knowing where you get your worth from and who has access to it will allow you to overcome that fear of rejection by really just putting that boundary up of knowing this is where this stops, and this is as far as I let this person go. It doesn't go outside this meeting, or it doesn't go outside this question. And being aware of how far you're letting people's words impact and have control over your life.
I love that. That's so good. All right, boys. That was it.
Hey, what's
good?
Tomorrow?
Thank y'all for tune in tomorrow, 9 a.m. Central with Ryan Burgess. Also, Clay, seek discomfort. I love that. Fear of rejection beats you down, but thinking back to where I was when I started somewhat feels, I love that so much. I love that. So, Clay, thank you again. Thank you all for tuning in. Dan, Jake, I'll see you boys tomorrow.
Yeah.
9 a.m. Don't be late, Jake. And I appreciate y'all time. Everyone, thank y'all for tuning in. See you all tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Central. Ryan Burgess, engineering manager from Netflix. Y'all have a good one.
Awesome.